styles of play, from riding jet skis to clinging to railings as you slowly shuffle across gaps. Despite some of its technical hiccups such as janky controls, bland textures and choppy frame rate, Raw Danger still delivers on its promise that just never lets up throughout its runtime. Treasure has got a well-known history for making some of the most bizarre games imaginable, and Stretch Panic is no exception to that rule. It all centers on Linda, a young girl who's the youngest of 12 sisters who are disgustingly vain and self-absorbed. One day, a mysterious box is delivered to their home, and once it was opened, a huge doorway of light engulfed the sisters and trapped them within it and turned them into demons. It's not long until Linda discovers the box and it possesses her scarf with bizarre powers that will help her in a quest to purge the demons now inhabiting his sisters. Now the game is structured around a hub world with doors leading to different levels, where each of the sisters serve as a boss to defeat. Traversing each one is where Linda's scarf comes into play, and it allows her to stretch, pinch, and manipulate objects and enemies in order to earn points that are used to unlock these doors. When it comes to control, you've got to utilize both of the analog sticks, with one controlling Linda and the other the position of the scarf. By tapping R1, the scarf will stretch forward and attach itself to any given object or enemy, and pulling away will force it to snap back on the target. Or once your power meter is full, you can propel yourself forward and inflict some damage. Now these enemies aren't exactly what you'd expect, and instead the demons are really your focus on threats, so you've got to pull on the drive and balance. And once you get to the points, it's time to kill the bosses. This is where the mechanics come in. This game is truly very fast, and although it's not lots of faults, it's still a great game to play, especially when you're on and engaging with it. And rain down destruction from the sky. With its creative setup, humor, and varied gameplay, Citizen Kabuto is one of the best shooters you'll find on the PlayStation 2. So whether you're a fan of action, strategy, or just love games that don't take themselves too seriously, it delivers on every front. Beatdown Fists of Vengeance is a game with a pretty bad reputation, but I could never really understand the hate that it received. It's essentially a beat-em-up that shares a lot in common with the likes of River City Ransom, and gives you the choice of one of 5 different characters to choose from, with the story revolving around a cartel that has set you up for a crime. And with both the police and the underworld tracking you down, you've got no choice but to make a stand. This sees you having to create your own empire and overthrow the gang, which plays directly into the many different segments that comprise the gameplay. As I mentioned, so you can expect your fair share of fights with a huge selection of different enemies, all with their own movesets, but you've got plenty of ways to fight back, with each of the characters having their own unique attacks, as well as a nice array of weapons to help round out your options when it comes to major encounters. In between the fights, you'll be exploring the city, and it's here where it allows you to make several different choices that contribute to your notoriety. You've got 2 percentages on the screen, one represents the one, and the other the police. Such as robbing or fighting those you're looking to recruit, you will slowly rise, and the police will be hunted down and arrested, and the same goes for the mob, that sees their numbers increasing around the city with a percentage. In order to drop them, you've got to use your money to buy new clothes, and you can even get plastic surgery to help cover your tracks. Despite its rough edges, such as the camera, repetitive missions, and its downright offensive loading times, it's still something that's worth playing. DCV is a fighting game that's anything but traditional, and instead feels like an absolute fever dream. You jump into one of many different construction vehicles and fight with mobs. There's an equally absurd story behind the strange saga. It sees you playing as a reluctant heir to your father's struggling construction company, with the goal being to restore it to its former glory. The story mode is surprisingly a lot of fun, in that it's so bad that it's actually good, with the narrative's sheer lunacy ending up being one of the game's greatest strengths, and thankfully the gameplay is more than up to the task of matching it. There's about 15 playable characters, each of which come along with their own construction vehicle, from bulldozers to cranes and diggers, and while the fights can feel a bit awkward due to the sheer size of them, the controls end up being quite simple to get to grips with, allowing you to control your machine with ease. Movement is handled by the D-pad, where your attacks are assigned to the face buttons, with you having about 3 of them in total to choose from. You've got a left, center and right attack, and you're able to charge them for higher amounts of damage, but there's also special abilities that are unique to each character, and it's where a lot of the humour can be found within the game. From hitting your enemy for a home run, teaming up with a samurai, to summoning a horde of shoppers to stampede your opponent, or even calling down lightning strikes. They're all completely absurd and give you a great way to make combat should you find yourself on the ropes. Even though the game is quite short and can be beaten in about 2 hours, that time is filled with hilarious gaps and unforgettable characters and situations that really make BCB something worth playing. PlayStation 2 received its fair share of strange and quirky games, and Capcom settled this game using the analysis of the introduction of Cosmo, an alien whose travel field is full pranks on the unsuspecting public, but he hits the villains. The internet is full of pranksters of its own, and to make matters worse, his ship crash landed, alerting the humans to the existence of aliens that are sent to fall into a frenzy. The center of the gameplay is Cosmo's Rainbow, which gives you the ability to zap the humans and take on their field. Every second skin applied basically you're given 5 random items to carry out your pranks, from whacked out super weapons to wild animals and fireworks making up the mix, with a near endless amount of options that prove to be just as insane as the last. So whether you're dropping pins for somebody to step on, or are simply blasting their eardrums with a maddening volume of soul-destroying music, the results will always be the same. Their fear and panic will cause them to drop a huge amount of coins that you've got to collect, but the catch is you only have a few seconds in which to do so before being set upon by an angry mob, and then you've got to run back to your ship to avoid being captured. The insane nature of the gameplay is further supported by the playful and colourful cel-shaded visuals, right down to each and every comical animation, not only for Cosme but for the countless humans you'll interact with as well. All in all, Under the Skin will likely not be for everyone, but for those of you who are looking for an upbeat and addictive experience, it's definitely worth go. The Simple 2000 series was a long-running line of budget games released in Japan, and 9 times out of 10 there was a reason for them being so cheap that would usually come down to them being complete and utter shit. Sometimes though, they hit gold, and Buccaneer was one of them that sets the player up with a simple premise. You're a pirate who wakes up to find himself shipwrecked on a mysterious island, teeming with skeletal buccaneers, supernatural magic and buried treasure, with the goal being to fight off hordes of undead enemies and ultimately claim the lead for yourself. The story doesn't take itself too seriously, and instead relies on and embraces about every trope you can imagine as you hack your way through to the end in a lively and often comical fashion. On the gameplay front, it's basically Devil May Cry meets Jack Sparrow, with real fire. You've got the standard heavy attacks that can be chained into combos, as well as dodge moves and counters that offer a bit of depth to the otherwise simple setup. Adding to this is your special meter that, when activated, gives you an increased amount of strength, as well as access to unique attacks like a bone-shattering ground pound that's perfect for dealing with large amounts of enemies. The game's simplicity is its secret weapon, and there's no bloated systems like skill trees, just pure arcade-style action that's perfect for anyone to be able to pick up and master. And with a nice amount of unlockables like new outfits, weapons, and even a 2-player mode, there's plenty of replayability included as well. Buccaneer really surprised me, and even though it's quite an obscure game, for anyone who's remotely interested in hack and slashers, it's one adventure you won't want to miss. Dog's Life is one hell of a strange but great game that landed on the PS2 that throws you into the role of a farm dog called Jake, who's used to living a fairly comfortable life. He longs for the affection of a neighbouring dog Daisy, and after she's kidnapped, he vows to track down those responsible and bring her back home safely. Now the game is divided into 3 main areas, which are all made up of different missions, with it all revolving around the amount of bones that you can collect that serve as your means to advance to the next area and continue the story. You can grab these bones by completing missions that consist of activities like territory capture, touch the wall, races, pursuit challenges, and many other tasks. Another way of earning points is by helping out teammates as you progress through the game, with each area having 2 or 3 people that need help. These usually see you having to track down pets or fetch certain items. And of course, since you're there's a lot of dog-related activities to pass the time with as well, such as digging holes, barking at pets, begging for food, and more importantly, using your sense of smell to track things down. Known as smell-o-vision, it opens up a vast amount of things to discover. May that be more of the ever-precious bones, or the footprints of other dogs and humans, which are useful for completing the missions. What lets the game down a bit though with the controls that are not exactly what you call smooth, and it ends up being a bit awkward trying to maneuver Jake around and face the camera that seems to have a mind of its own, and it's a recipe for frustration that sadly does hurt it overall. That being said though, the straight up weirdness and humour that the game offers does make up for it. A lot of people are no doubt aware of Mr. Mosquito, a rather bizarre and weird game that landed on the PS2, with saw you terrorising the family known as the Devils as you pressed the its sequel, Let's Go Hawaii, is what I said. After the family is having enough of their torment, they set off on holiday to Mosquito came along for the ride as well. In terms of mechanics, not a lot has changed and you'll still be gathering blood, but this time around you'll actually act as a healer as your venom has a mysterious new power to help soothe away any of the aches that the humans have. After sucking enough blood from any given spot, you get to mark it as researched, which comes in handy for when the humans get annoyed and enter combat. Here you'll have to target the regions which help to relax your mind and slowly but surely bring them out of their rage. A lot like the first game, not the inclusion of the sequel and the second and see the performance being evaluated with these can then be spent on 4 different attributes such as your sucking power, relax power and speed that have a noticeable effect on how well you can achieve each and every objective. Despite a few changes, the core of the gameplay largely remains untouched, and this is by no means a bad thing as it turns out to be just as enjoyable as the first game with a few new twists that help it feel fresh, with the only downside being that it never got localized and unfortunately remains without an English translation. Thankfully though, it's easy enough to learn English, so don't let that hold you back from playing the game. Well, that does it for another video. Keep an eye out for the next part of this will be coming soon, so don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to get notified about new videos. You can follow me on all of my socials which are linked below to stay up to date, and also join my growing community on Discord to meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters, Rhino, Skilljin, Shooter, Richard, Amy, Daniel, Dio, Omar, Strider, Pierre, Carl, Awesome Jacket Dude, Maximus, Scott, Albert, Ryan, Alex, GameCube Galaxy, Pierce Salaryman, David, Highfield, for their continued support to help make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining the Discord or supporting the channel on Patreon, you'll find all of these links down below. As always, thanks for taking the time to chat with me as well. I'll catch you next time.
What'd you do? final transports are ready to launch.
Oh, fuck. Oh, okay. Fuck. Oh.
Structural damage detected. Emergency protocols are in effect. Please clear the hangar immediately.
Several demonic signals are moving to King Novik's position. It's Azric. Lair, you have to help him.
What?
The last flight
PlayStation 5 in prison? Let's get into this. Yes, so there is prisons that allow you to have PlayStation 5s, Xboxes, DVD players, CD players. For the most part, though, this is not very common. Not a lot of prisons offer you stuff like this. And most of the time, if they do offer you stuff like this, you're in some kind of like special class or some kind of special housing unit for people that have good behavior. Because I promise you, as soon as you try to buck the system, the cops are going to take every single thing inside your cell. And if you guys look at this, this was at least like $800 to $1,000. This TV was like $300. Each one of those games is probably $60 to $90. So just between this dude has a couple $1,000 and he don't want to lose that. So I promise you the inmate in this video is on his best behavior. Trust me, nobody in prison wants to lose their babysitter. And that's facts.